Greetings everyone, it's time for a video. This video I'm going to cover this Festool T18+3 compact drill set. I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm also going to go and review an old T15+3 set, if I can squeeze it in here real quick, show you. And let's see, yeah, give you a rough idea what's coming. And then I'm going to do a comparison about them as well as some comments. So let's get into it. This is the T18+3 Festool. Give you just a quick couple of little comments about it. Festool is a German tool manufacturer. They make tools, power tools, and so on. Woodworking, as well as kind of focused to some on carpentry and so forth. They also have other things they do as well. Getting, you know, as anything right now, getting any kind of items or tools at this time of the pandemic has been, you know, supply has been pretty tough. Lots of disruptions. Festool's no exception. They do, however, sometimes have Recon tools or refurbished tools, as people may know them, for sale. I picked this up on their Recon sale. Got really lucky to get it, honestly. I just happened to log into the owner's site, saw it, and they said, oh, the Recon sale, clicked around, saw one, grabbed it, and was really fortunate to get it. I will say that this set, which is number 575695, is actually, you can't buy it anymore. It's been discontinued. Now, the T18+3 set in general is not, but this particular one, which has the big thing is it has the 3.1 amp hour lithium batteries. They no longer sell it. Now they sell a set which is has the 4 amp hour batteries. But I'll talk about more in a second. There's other couple of differences too. Anyway, so let's get into what's in here. Of course, you know, Festool, when you buy your stuff, you get their manuals. This time they have one for the battery. I'm sorry, one for the drill itself, and then they have one for the battery charger. And then, let's see, they have... This one's kind of funny. Let me make sure you're focused here. This one's kind of entertaining because this is actually the battery pack manual, which is comes in 27 languages. Anyway, let's see. First, like I said, you get the batteries. In this case, it's 18 volt, 3.1 amp hour lithium ion. This is the compact set. These are Bluetooth batteries, and I'll talk about that more in a second. You know, pretty straightforward, pretty small, not bad. Let's see, this, they have, of course, an indicator of, you know, 1, 2, 3 bars for, you know, how much charge is left. These batteries themselves are actually made in Poland. And like I said before, these aren't, they actually don't produce these anymore. The 4 amp hour takes over. You get 2 of them in this set. Let's see. Of course, you get the charger itself. This is the TCL6, which you can still buy. This charger charges anywhere from their 10 volt all the way up to the 18 volt, which is the max voltage they sell. This one is actually made in Germany, and you know, it's fine. This is not the, this is their, they still call this a rapid charger, but this is not their Airstream charger, which is the SCA, which has, it uses air, similar like Makita and other manufacturers, to cool the battery as it charges, so it can charge quicker. Pretty basic stuff. They have a cord wrap. They conveniently show you, if you're going to mount this on a wall, what the screws is. In this case, it's 83 millimeters, 3 and 9/32 of an inch. So, of course, with the Festool, you set, you know, any set you get, and I'll get more in the contents, you get the sustainer. You don't always get this. You can get, it's pretty rare, but you can buy items without them. But usually you're going to get one. This is the older style, which is also part of the reason why this thing is discontinued. This is the T-Lock version, which is the second main version of the sustainer. It's T-Lock because it has this thing which twists, and you can get online and find them. Thanos still sells these. Festool will no longer sell these, other than they're clearing out. They, just like they did with their classic version, which I'll show you in the T15+3, this one's gone too. Of course, like I said, you get the charger and the batteries. You also get the chucks. So part of the reason why they call this T18+3 is because you get extra chucks. You get their well-known Eccentric Chuck, which you can look up and see all about that. Of course, you also get a, Jacobs style chuck, pretty normal. This is actually made in Germany, which is pretty nice. I don't know where all this other stuff is made. They don't have labels. They do have one on that. You also get this, which is the DDES. This is called the Eccentric Chuck. And how it works, of course, is you have, you can get pretty much flush with, say, like a cabinet or a wall or some other surface that you're trying to get into. Like you have a screw here and you're trying to drill into, or trying to screw into something or screw out or drill in or whatever. This is a really nice tool. It's not something I use very much, and I will say I haven't had a chance to really use this set yet, but we'll get to the other one, the 15+3, and I have all these same items as well. So I've used all this stuff a lot. The other thing you get is the right angle chuck, what they call the DDAS. And this is, again, not something you use very often, but it's pretty handy to have sometimes, or sometimes where you want to come in at a right angle. And I'll show how all these things attach to the drill. Then, of course, you get the drill itself. I've already got a battery pack on it. Has 2 speeds, 1 and 2. Ironically, or I guess oddly, maybe ironically is not the right word to say, let's see if you can hear this, the speed for the higher speed sounds kind of lower in terms of RPM. That's because the gearbox is, I guess it's converting it at a better, higher RPM, but you can hear it. And the speed range, I think, which kind of is important, but if you want to know what it is, you can learn all this stuff online, is first gear at 0 to 450 RPMs, and second gear at 0 to 1500 RPMs. I am going to do some more comparisons between this and the 15+3 when I go through some numbers. So, of course, you get the drill itself. It's got everything you would expect. You have your direction switch. It does have an LED, which is nice. Also, when you pull the trigger, you can see you've got your bars here. It also shows you. Now, if you notice here, let's see if I can get it to happen again. I have to wait for it to cut off. If you watch here, you'll see a little blue dot come on. That's the Bluetooth, and again, I'll talk about that more in a second, but that's what that is. Other things, you got a torque control in the back. That goes from 0 to, or 1 to 25 in terms of positions. The torque varies based on, what you have, and that usually works when it's in the screw. You can tell, of course, the difference. And then if you flip it into drill, it goes at full torque for that gear. So like in case of 1, that's what it is. So it's pretty nice. It's an electronic clutch, which is pretty cool. Let's see. I don't know if there's anything else. They also have these, let's see if you can see them. You got little magnetic slots for holding bits. You can hold the 4 bits here, which is pretty cool. And, you can put whatever you want to in there. They're just standard insert bits. So you also get a bit holder. This is Sensortech based, which again, this is Festool's proprietary kind of drill technology. They've had it for a long time. Back in the day when they first came out with it, it was kind of, it was nice, but other manufacturers have, and tool OEMs have improved their, I guess you say, their drill capabilities and tolerances, so there's kind of less of a need for it now, but you can still use regular drill bits with this. And to give you an idea, if I put the Eccentric Chuck on, like so, and then I lock this in, and it's in place, and then if you go and put a bit in, this is a magnetic bit insert, and there you go. So that's how that works. Nothing really, unexpected. Of course, you can always, what nice thing is you can pop the chucks off and change them. So, for example, I went from the Eccentric Chuck to the Jacobs Chuck, and there I go, it's on. No big deal. And then this will hold up, I think it's to 1/2" drill bits. Let's see, and that is one of the benefits of this, is that this, what they call the fast fix system, is that you can quickly change things out. One other nice little feature about this is if you have everything off, you can just put a bit in. See if I can get it to fit in there, and there you go. So you can have kind of more of a, if you're getting in kind of close quarters, you can use it to do that. So just something nice to have. The other 2 special chucks, and there is another one which I'll show you later on, but to give you an idea what I was talking about, the Eccentric Chuck. So you put this on, you got to line it up a bit, and then you have to switch the collar, and it can be kind of fussy. When it locks in, there you go, you're locked. And now your And I'll put one in just so you can see. And now you can go and turn just like that, you know. Like I said, you can get in close to something like, I don't know, let's see if I can simulate something here for you. Like you can come in and if you've got some tight quarters, you can get in there. It's actually, like I said, it's pretty handy to have. It's not something you use all the time, obviously, but it's pretty cool if you're needing to get in tight quarters. And then, of course, you can rotate it around. They have all these little notches on either part. So these are the, like the indentations, these are the, I guess you could say, the things that index. And you can move it around so you can put it at different locations. And there's a lot of them. Now, it is kind of fussy to get in is what I found, but, you know, once you get it in, it'll stay in place. Same thing with the right angle. It's the same basic thing. So, like, you could come in like this if you wanted to. You're coming, like, say, around a corner or, you know, some tight location you can come in. Of course, you can put a bit in here. You can put the Eccentric on it. You can put the Jacob's Chuck, you know, whatever you want. And again, you can rotate it around and come in like at a different angle, you know, what have you. It's pretty handy to have, again, in certain situations, but you don't need it. Let's see. What else? You also get a belt clip that you can take off and attach on either side. It's pretty cool because it's on the base and doesn't interfere with the battery, which is nice. And you can put it on either side. Or, of course, you don't need it. I actually don't use the belt clip that much, but, you know, it's just something to have. It's handy. Let's see. So one thing about this, of course, you get the insert itself with a whole bunch of little storage things. One thing Festool does, which is kind of cool, is, and they used to not do this, they show you how the tool and all the pieces and accessories and stuff should be laid out inside the insert, which is cool. They used to not show that, and sometimes you could get kind of confused about what goes where, but they've added this in, and this is really nice. So, I'm not sure if there's much else to cover in the set itself. I'm going to do the comparison parts later on. That's about it for this. I will call out a couple other things later on because I'm going to compare this. So that's it for the 18+3. All right, here's the 15+3. Nothing really much to say about it in terms of, you know, you get a sustainer. Now, this is the older school style, and actually is a little unusual too because this is the classic one. This is the first version that Festool released. This one's made in Germany. You got differences. This is also called the attic lid configuration, which means you have this lid that you can open up and you can store stuff. In this case, I have some drill bits as well as some Torx bits in there. Inside, of course, we have the drill itself, manual, yeah. Charger. This is a very old style. This is the TRC3. This is about 2 versions back. It is made in Germany, which is a plus. And then I will take this out because this is actually not included. This is the extra chuck I'm going to talk about in a second. When you got this set, this is what you got. You got the drill. You got the older 15 volt. Actually, it's 14.4 volt. BPS 15 lithium ion cells. And these are, I think these are made in Germany also, if I remember right. Can't remember if I can find a thing on here. Don't know, maybe not. I can't remember. But you get to them, as you can tell, they're really, really big and bulky. But, you know, they're pretty decent. You get the Eccentric Chuck, you get the Jacob's Chuck. I won't bore you with that. You get the Eccentric Chuck, same thing, DDES, made in Germany. I don't know that they make them in Germany now. Maybe they do, I don't know. This one, of course, is the right angle chuck, same thing, made in Germany. And, I don't know, and they probably all are. Of course, you get the drill itself. Same basic stuff, 2 speeds. The RPMs are the same, actually. It's got the drill and your screw and your electronic chuck. No LED, very important. No battery stuff, but I will say there's a reason for that, of course. And then, of course, you don't have a battery gauge either. So, but you got the, you know, forward, back, all that, so on. I mean, you know, it's the same stuff that you would always expect. You got your bit storage here, too. This is, like I said, this is all pretty much the same. The insert itself, as you can tell, is a little different. There's not really a space difference between the two, but, you know, you've got this. One thing that is different, and I'm kind of getting into the comparison part, is you have all this underneath as well as a bunch of stuff in there, which I'll talk about in a second. You do get this bit holder. This is basically the same thing as what was in the other one. This is an extra one you can buy, which is a locking bit holder. The only chuck that I have that's different is this, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Apart from that, everything's pretty much, you know, it's the same. Now, this drill itself, again, made in Germany. The thing that's kind of interesting about this is this was actually made in, let's see, it had a manufacturing date on it. Somewhere. Hold on a second, see if I can find it. It's in a weird spot. Sorry, it's being blind. It's 0309, meaning March 2009. So yes, I didn't buy this immediately, obviously, after it was made, but if I assume even, say, 6 months after it came out, I've had this drill, I guess that makes 11 years now, roughly, something like that, 10 years at the least. So this is the original set of batteries that came with it. It's served me very well. I can say, you know, I've never had to send it in, never had any problems with it. Now, granted, I'm not as a high use user for this, but I feel like I really got my money out of it. And yes, Festools are very expensive. I understand completely. It can be a lot of sticker shock, but I feel pretty strongly that I got my money's worth out of this, and it still works just fine. These batteries still work great. There's nothing wrong with them. I have noticed that they don't last quite as long as they used to, but that's been the only thing I can say about them. So that's pretty much it for the 15+3. There's not really any major differences, you know, in terms of expectation between the two. But we are going to get into comparison land, and I think I'll start with the 15+3 going back towards the 18. So I'm going to set up for that, and then we'll start walking through it. All right, so there's things that are obviously different. There's the sustainer itself. This is the classic versus the newer T-Lock 2, which is, you know, practically speaking, in general, there's not really a difference itself, but in terms of what this particular style, this is the attic lid style. I like the attic lid a lot. It gives me a lot of storage. You got more dividers you could put in, so like if you really wanted to, you know, move some stuff around, you could. Festool also sells, sadly, I don't really think they sell this in America. They used to. You could get inserts with drill bits and so forth that would fit in here and actually would tip up. It was a very nice system. I'm not really sure why they don't really push it much more over here, but they just don't, for whatever reason. The other obvious differences, for example, you got the charger. You have this ancient TRC3, and then you have the TCL6. You can tell this one's wider, but I actually like this one better. It's shorter and more compact. The one thing that, you know, it's not really a huge difference in terms of charging. This does charge 3 amps, and this charges at 6 amps. So I guess, you know, in terms of doubling it, it's probably fine. You know, people are going to like this better. But in practice for me, I'll put like one battery on and use it and then charge the other. So it just doesn't matter to me. It is also multiple in that it'll do the NiCad, NIMH, and lithium ion. Of course, who would use the other two at this point? And back in the day, Festool did offer batteries that used all three chemistries, so this made more sense in that time. The other thing is, this, you know, it does actually charge up to 18 volts, so I could use it on the newer batteries if I really wanted to. And as you can tell, it fits in pretty well. One thing that is nice about the older sustainer, and this is something I've seen as a complaint that other people is the insert itself. One of the complaints I've seen about the newer one is it takes up a lot of space. There's a lot of wasted space in it. As you can tell with this, it's very compact. There's a lot of things here that are nice. For example, all of these chucks, including this one, which is the drywall chuck, and I'll wait till the end, I'll talk about that. They all fit together nice. Everything's here is very easy to see. They have so much space that you pull this up and you have all these things here that you can store. Now, none of this comes with the set as originally bought. These are all things I bought myself later on. So I'm kind of irked by that a little bit. I wish, honestly, that the newer one had this space. And to give you a kind of a rough idea what I'm talking about, you know, and I could take everything out and show you. Underneath here, there's just so much open space that if they had done things similar to how they did to the old one, honestly, they could have gone and had a lot more storage. So personally, I find it a little irritating, but you know, I think I think for probably most people they won't care because they'll have a separate sustainer or something where they'll have their stuff in it. So, you know, maybe it's kind of a wash, really. But that is one thing I think that Festool kind of went backwards, so to speak, because this thing is nice. You can carry most of what you need in here in one sustainer. I mean, I don't need to carry multiples. I can put everything in this and it's good. So I kind of think the old school insert was a lot better, honestly. I think they just had a better design. There's not really any practical difference between the chucks. If I look at them, for example, the only one I can say that probably is different, really, you know, majorly different, and it's really just appearance, is the right angle chuck. The new one has this kind of white powder coating on it. You know, and then they kind of have maybe some differences here. But it's really the same. There's not really, you know, this is, well, I guess this is actually a little better. No, that's kind of plastic too. They're both plastic, really. But, you know, practically speaking, there's not really any difference in terms of how they function. They still work the same. And they both, this is all metal. It feels good, solid. I imagine this is kind of some zinc or maybe magnesium or something like that. It feels a little heavier than aluminum. These two chucks, you know, other than maybe the size-wise, they're, you know, they're the same roughly. Maybe some difference in terms of the, you know, the profile, and then you've got a slightly larger grip area here with this one, but and you know, this one's a little fatter, but I don't really, there's not really any practical difference really. Eccentric Chuck is the Eccentric Chuck. There's no real difference I've seen. I mean, they're the same. And let's see, then the batteries, of course, there's a huge difference here, you know, other than the obvious that one is significantly smaller than the other, as you can tell. And I mean, that is a huge difference. I'm not going to measure it, but that's quite a significant drop. And it also has more power. This is 2.6 amp hour. This is 3.1 amp hour. So that's a pretty big jump. And is, of course, being 18 volt. And then there's the Bluetooth. So I told you I was going to tell you about the Bluetooth earlier. What this is for the Bluetooth is Festool has an accessory you can buy for a vacuum, and you got to have the Bluetooth battery. So basically what it allows you to do is you hook up the Bluetooth accessory to one of their vacuums. You can hook up a cordless tool that uses the Bluetooth battery from Festool and pair them up, and then when you turn the tool on, like say, I don't know, you have a cordless saw, but you have a vacuum hose hooked up to it, the cordless tool, without being plugged into the vacuum, will actually start it up. It's a pretty neat feature. For a drill, it's questionable that you would need it, though I suspect you can get the dust collar that they have and potentially use it for that, I guess. It's certainly an option, but I don't know that you would really need it. At any rate, that's just something you can do. But as I said, you know, you can see there's a significant difference. Now, there is one cool thing about Festool batteries, and this is one of the reasons why I bought this thing. So, years ago when I bought this, and I guess at this point it's been, I don't know, 10 years or more, I had just come off having a DeWalt drill, and I liked it a lot. It was a good drill, but the batteries died, I don't know, within 9 or 10 months of me buying it and using it. And I took care of the batteries. I didn't really mistreat them or anything. I think they were NIMH, you know, nickel metal hydride, but I was pretty perturbed because when I went to go buy more batteries, they didn't make them anymore. They'd already switched to a different connector, and they were playing the deck chairs on the Titanic. Well, yeah, we're just going to go change things, and too bad, you know, you're doomed. You're going to hit the iceberg or whatever. And you got to go basically just buy a whole new drill. Well, I didn't want to do that because to buy 2 new batteries, which you could still get them at that time, I mean, it cost more than the original price for the drill and the batteries and the charger and all that. That was pretty infuriating. And of course they glued the batteries together so you couldn't rebuild them, but you could still do it. It was just a real pain, and when you rebuilt they weren't very well, so I was very disgruntled by that. So I tried out the Festool. I'm like, you know, if I'm gonna go ahead and buy new, why would I do that? So I went ahead and bought another, bought this instead, and I have certainly got my money's worth. These batteries are 10 years old and they still work quite well, so I'm not sure if Festool has something they do that's different, and I know other battery manufacturers nowadays are probably pretty good, but at the time, the DeWalt really left a bad taste in my mouth with that, and I've been very happy with this, and it's worked very well. As you can tell, I've used the heck out of it. So I'm sure these newer ones are going to work pretty well for me. The other thing that's kind of interesting is, of course, you got the compactness. So to give you a rough idea, if you compare, say, and I know some people have given Festool some criticism over their battery. They said, oh, other people have bad battery tech, but here's a good comparison of something that really might show some stuff. But maybe it isn't as bad as what people think it is. So here's Festool, the T18+3 with its battery. Here is a Makita. I bought this. This is about a little over a year old. It's LXT, 3 amp hour, 18 volt. It's got, you know, same battery indicator, etc. 4 bars as opposed to 3. Everything is pretty similar in many ways. Now this is an impact driver, so this isn't an apples to oranges comparison. But as you can tell, the Festool is shorter because A, the battery is shorter by a significant margin, and it's produces more power. I mean, you know, 3.1 amp hours versus 3 amp hour. I don't know. I think watt hours. I don't know if they listed on here. I have to look it up. Might be less. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But I think it's probably ends up being pretty similar. Any rate, this for me is kind of interesting. I didn't actually expect. No, I take that back. So it's 55.8 watt hours, and the Makita is listed as 54 watt hours. So Festool's doing as well or slightly better than a larger Makita. So now, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is bad or anything. I love my Makita impact driver. Wouldn't give it up for anything. But I think this is a good example of how Festool can compete with others and can do pretty well on the size and whatnot. So just a thought. It's just pointing out that it ain't as bad as what sometimes I see people say online. It's just not, honestly. Now, one other thing that's pretty cool about the batteries is that, you know, I mentioned before in my little story about DeWalt being incompatible and between even their own tool from one older to a newer. And, you know, that happens, sure, but that tool wasn't old, and they already did it. They made it incompatible with their own stuff, and it was pretty irritating. So I can take this drill. This is the 18 volt, brand new. I can take it off. I can take this 15 volt. Now this is a 10-year-old battery, and I can go and I can put it on the Festool, and it works. Now, sure, it's slower, but that is the part of this being a brushless. This is a DC brushless motor that the way they've designed it, there is compatibility with the older batteries with the newer tools within reason, but it does indeed work. Works fine. Now again, it's a little slower, doesn't have as much power. I'm sure it's running at lower torque, and I probably wouldn't want to run it this way all the time. But in a pinch, or, you know, hey, I could go and I could grab this, I could throw it on, and it will work fine. Just something that's pretty cool. I think that's a big plus. And I can take the new battery and put it on the old charger, and I know this thing would work and charge it. Now it would charge it slower, but it would still work. I don't know too many people doing that. Not for a drill that's 10 years old, honestly. I mean, that's to me is kind of the opposite in terms of extremes of compatibility versus incompatibility of your older versus your newer tools. So I know that's the way for the Makita and the LXT platform now, that they have a lot of compatibility, and that's changed a bunch with a lot of tool manufacturers that they've improved. You could say they brought themselves up to a good level. Same thing for Milwaukee and their M12 and M18 systems, which are pretty decent. I have some of their tools too. But like I said, though, that's for me at least, I think that's pretty amazing. I think that's a big plus in their favor. And I don't know too many other companies that at least can brag about that. Maybe there are out there, and you know, someone could put that in there. But 10 to 11 years old, this battery works. That's pretty good. Let's see. So I don't know if there's much else to say in terms of the comparison of what I mentioned before. Only other thing I'd say is there's no belt clip on the 15+3 either. But again, this is an ancient one. And one point about here to say about even this is that Festool, when they came out with the 15+3, this was the first version. They released a new version about a year later after this, which added an LED and added a belt clip. And that does remind me, there is one other little difference between the two. A slight improvement that they've done. Remember, I have these little bit slots, and they're pretty cool. But one thing that the old one had is, you notice I can slide right through. I can push them all the way through, and in fact, I can push it all the way out. Well, that's kind of a negative to the old design. But the new one, they modified it just enough to where now it stops. It won't go any further. I can't push it through. So that was a nice little touch they did to make that better. Let's see. That's really about it in terms of comparison. I will talk about one more thing. That is this, which is the kind of a bonus. This is they kind of call it the drywall chuck or the depth chuck. Basically what it is you put it on, and again, the same kind of thing. You put it on, and then it's got a bit, which if you unscrew this, let's see if I can get it off. You can pull this bit out. It's magnetic. It pops in and out. Or may not be magnetic, but it locks in. And basically what it is, like if you want to drill, you can see here there's a depth which controls how deep the screw is. So I don't know if you can see that too well. In the plastic, if you turn left, it'll set it in deeper. If you turn right, the depth will happen is your whatever material drilling into, you'll go in and hit. And the further you have it set, what it'll do is it'll either set the screw in deep, or you can leave it, you know, like flush, or even leave it kind of proud if you want. Primarily meant for doing drywall, and I've used it in that, and it's really handy. But you can also do it like if you want to set your screws deeper or shallower, like, I don't know, wood screws or deck screws or whatever. It's up to you, you know, it's just something that you can do. I've used it off and on, and it is handy. You got to kind of futz with it to get it set right, but when you do, it works pretty well. There's some bonus footage. Forgot a couple of comparison points I wanted to mention. So remember before at the start I mentioned that this did not have an LED. Well, Festool had this, for lack of a better word, kind of Frankenstein way of coming up with an LED. Kind of innovative, but at the same time really kind of absurd. You know, this just honestly works a lot better. But nevertheless, they didn't have one. So what they came up with this thing where it was a combination. It was a headband. So like you could have a light, and I don't have any batteries in it, but then you could twist this thing off, and then they had space in the collar in the front to where you could put it on. Let's see if I can get it on there. It's kind of fussy. And then you could have an LED that would shine, you know. Yeah, it's kind of lame, honestly. But, and then the way this thing fits on there, it's kind of hard to get some of the chucks on. You either have this on or you don't. But it was just something they did. The utility of it is supremely questionable if you ask me, but I picked it up at the time, and like I said, you can also use it as a headband, which I guess is kind of cool, but why not just have one on your drill in the first place? And like I said before, they added it later, so it's kind of one of those little odd things. Now, one thing they did do which kind of irritated me is, and this has been a feature of drills for a long time, is this drill really doesn't have three positions. It has two. So like left, if you push it in from the right towards the left all the way, you're screwing in. If you push it to the left all the way to the right, it's reversed and you're unscrewing, or, you know, drilling in reverse. But if you try to put it in the middle, you can't do it. You can kind of hear the click. I can kind of lock it a little bit, but Festool never had a detent for the middle lockout like others do. And to give an example, here's a Makita, and old Makitas have this too. DeWalt's had this, others, I don't know why Festool just didn't have it, but they didn't. So this thing's locked. I can pull the trigger, it's never gonna go. Now, it will show me the LED, which is cool, and it doesn't show me the battery, but I think other models from other manufacturers do that now. In fact, the only way you can see it now, they don't actually show you, but the Festool does when it comes on. They improved it a bit on the 18+3. If I put it in the middle, again, there's not a detent there. I can kind of lock it out a bit, but it'll still pop because it's not really there. It just seems like whatever piece that's there on this lever, this selector that goes back and forth, is a little wider. And I can kind of lock it out, but it'll still go. And again, I don't know why they don't do that. I find that it's handy to have if I don't want to accidentally kick it off sometimes. And sometimes I'm in that situation, but they just don't. So anyway, this is something to kind of a quirk of the Festools. One last bit in terms of comparison between the 15+3 and the 18+3 is the torque figures for what they list as max torque in wood for the 15+3 is 20 Newton meters. In metal, it's 34 Newton meters, a little unusual there. And then in the, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's 27 Newton meters and 40 Newton meters. And then this is 35 Newton meters and 50 Newton meters. So an increase, pretty good one. I mean, you went from 27 to 35 between the old and the new version. So pretty nice. Anyway, and one last point about the 18+3. As I said before, this set is discontinued. You actually can't buy it anymore. And what they sell now is the major differences are the most comparable set. Festool has dumped the T-Lock 2s. They're now up to the 3s, and I'm not going to get into that, but there are differences. And then the other thing is they don't include, these are 4 amp hour versus 3.1. And the very last thing, which I do find irritating, is they no longer include this Eccentric Chuck, which I think is weird, but they don't. So, well, that's it about this. And as always, that's all. Hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.